And now it's recording.
All right, we're going to take it from Kuf Yud Beis Eter, the last paragraph on the page. We spoke yesterday about the idea of the chushim, in general, the senses, the five senses, and how they differ from the other 10 powers of the soul. But the 10 powers of the soul, while they are a huge contraction from the essence of the soul, nonetheless, we call them the Muhus Ha'ara. They're still made of the same stuff. In other words, they're a shine, a ray of the essence, but they're made of the same stuff of the essence. So it's like a small ray of the sun. It's still something like the sun. Whereas the Chushim, the senses, they already go into extremely external behavior. And one of the ways we can see this is that the other senses, they can have hashpah. But the chushim, the senses, do not have hashpah. They don't give. In other words, you can actually bestow your love upon somebody else. You could and change them and make them love you with your love. You could bestow your intellect upon someone else and make them wiser because of your intellect. You cannot bestow your eyesight upon someone and make them see. You cannot bestow your smell upon someone and make them smell. So you see, it has a certain change, a limitation. And we gave an analogy, which is like the drop that comes out of the cracks of a barrel, that even though it's very small and it's a drop compared to all the water that's in the barrel, in fact, it represents the intense pressure that the water has, which only gets seen when it comes out of the barrel. So we said that these senses come out of the holes of the body. They come out of your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, etc. Not so much your mouth, but they come out of your holes, and so they represent sort of like what leaks out of the body. And yet, as we said yesterday, there's something essential about the senses that you don't see in the rest of the powers. And that is essentially the tainug, the pleasure that takes place from the senses, which you don't find such an awesome tainug from the other powers. And he says, for example, like eyesight, and he said that when you see something, you are drawn to it and stuck to it in the devekis that you would not normally have unless you were seeing it. And the idea is that even the sense is a small thing, but your essential pleasure is there, which shows you that it draws your whole essence, and therefore it serves to arouse and bring your inner powers, your kochos, that we just said were lower, and bring them to a higher state. So we said, for example, that Rabbi, who saw Rabbi Meir from the back one time, and they were learning, he was smarter and wiser than all of his chaverim. Just because of that, because his eyes drew his intensity, it like clings him to the Rebbe. Therefore, it amplifies all of his other senses, including his mind, and therefore the mind was able to receive in a more essential way because his essence was brought to the table through his vision. Okay, that was a review of yesterday's class. Any questions? Good. So going on. Kamo came, we're at the bottom of the page here, Kuf Yud Beis. Kamo came hu b'share chushim. So it is with other senses, not just vision. Hu b'chush hareach, like smell. Sheish b'zeh arevas gedola. There's a tremendous pleasure. Shemegi el etzem hanefesh l'mayla mislashus baguf. And it reaches, again, this smell reaches to the essence of your soul, which is a part of your soul which does not actually dwell in your body. That's the point. We're saying that this little drop that comes out of the barrel, somehow it is linked with this awesome force, which is so strong that it's actually what pushes the drop out of the barrel. So you see there's a connection with the out of the barrel to what's beyond the barrel, as it were. So, no? In other words, what makes the middle is with the water in the barrel. Right? There's water filling a barrel. Okay. And there's waters that are like, there's so much pressure that a little bit of water seeps out of the cracks of the barrel. So even though it's just a drop of water that seeps out of the cracks, in comparison in terms of quantity, it's smaller than the barrel. But the very fact that water was the recipient of this force that got pushed out, it shows it in a certain sense, it's the kli of this intense force, which is something which is beyond the barrel. So in this little drop, is the essence is contained in it, right? Same thing is true with your senses. They're a huge urida compared to your actual body parts, and your mind and your heart, but because they actually come out, it shows that they have this intense connection with the essence. So he's saying that smell, for example, it reaches a place of the essence of your soul which is higher than enclosure into your body. There's part of your soul that does not fit into your body. It's like an infinite part of your soul. And somehow smell, which is this very low sense compared to intellect and emotion, it somehow triggers that part of your soul which is beyond your body. Where do we see this? Very simply, when a person faints and his soul is outside of his body, putting smelling salt by them, make them smell something, it restores their soul to their body, which means you're talking to the aspect of your soul which is not in your body. That's what your smell can achieve. As it says elsewhere. Also, Shmias Kol Arev, Yesh B'zeh Oneg Gadol. Also, hearing a beautiful sound is also an intense pleasure. Basically, we're dealing with pleasure. Ad Shechol Lios Kilayon Lagamri. A person can actually just die from beautiful sound, he says. You can just lose it. But you're never going to lose it like that when you hear an idea in the same way. Right? The beautiful piercing sound of like a soprano, it could like just take you over in a way that, hearing the best idea maybe won't. You're using the same sense of hearing, it's a different thing. The binyan shmi yesh beis in. Why? Well, they're both hearing. No. Because when it comes to hearing, there's two things. One, mashu memutza umavo lasagas haseichel. One is not like the essential power of hearing. It's just an intermediary and sort of a gateway, entrance point to understand an idea, to understand seichel. Right? Use your ears to pick up on an idea. So it is called hearing, but it's not like the etzem chush of shmiya. It's not the real essential gift of what hearing is. It's sort of just an intermediary. I want an idea. I have to transfer, I can see it, I can hear it, I have to hear the idea. And this is an Indian of ozen milin tibachin, that with the ear, you can make out words. Yeah.
There's this amazing video where you can see a bunch of people who have this technology that you could fix your deaf people so they can hear again.
I saw that.
And then they hear that for the first time, and it's completely overwhelming.
Completely overwhelming, they're crying and everything, yeah. Also, okay. I mean, that's also... it's an amazing pleasure, but that's also, I guess, the shock value and everything. But yeah. Shebezeh yesh oneg, lo yesh oneg kol kach. Right? So when your ear hears, I'm just going to bring that right into the mix here, huh? When your ear hears, in terms of to pick up information, there's not such a great pleasure in that. In other words, it's not the same as hearing a beautiful soprano. Even though there is a certain pleasure in hearing seichel, hearing intellect, particularly if you understand the essence of the idea. In other words, if someone tells you mamash like jewels of Penimius HaTorah, there's clearly pleasure. For sure there's going to be pleasure in that. But the actual, it's not going to sort of like knock you over, like you're going to start pouring tears out of your eyes necessarily from just the sweetness of the sound. It's like there's something, it's funny, but ideas as beautiful as they are and sophisticated as they are, just the concept of like a beautiful sound, which is much more like chagas oriented, it's sort of simpler, it just somehow takes you over in a way that the tainug, the simple pleasure, is just much more powerful.
It's interesting. It never talks about the sound. No, it always mentions levels of oneg, and sound's never there. It always top is godless or whatever, it's nasus, and then it's seichel. Never ever mentions sound, but now here it's saying it's top.
No, I mean he's not saying it's the top of all the other senses. He's just saying that senses in general. No, the top of the oneg senses is vision. Right? Then I think he goes to reach. I don't know if he's going in order, but he clearly before said that vision was the highest. But he's saying in general that the senses, which are all lower, they sort of trigger and arouse a tainug that your other senses cannot, even your intellect. And so he says here, again, just like we said by eyesight, that your intellect is improved, as it were, from seeing the teacher, from seeing the letters. So here, in other words, the pleasure that brings you into, I guess if you would hear Chassidus being said over by the most beautiful opera singer, it would even be, I don't know. But the point is that
Re'iyah is the highest pleasure. Is that because it's the most pixelated? We get the most information, the most feedback from that? I mean,
He didn't say it could be, but he's just saying that it draws you and like stops you in your tracks more than anything else. A person like comes up a sight. It's like he cannot remove himself from that sight, right? You're stuck to it. So the fact that you're stuck to it shows that your whole being is there. It's like if you weren't stuck to it, it means there's part of you that's somewhere else, right? The fact that you're just fully stuck there means there's not one little piece of you that's not in this. And why is it not one little piece? Because your essence came to the table. Once your essence comes, it brings everybody on board. So I guess hearing the other ones, they might not be as essential devekis, but the point is, any sense brings your essence to some degree to the fore. I don't know if you have an essence to some degree, but apparently you can.
Do you see in places that smelling hits the neshama, like directly hits the neshama?
Yeah, we spoke just about smelling.
So you smell after Shabbos.
Mm-hmm. We said it revives the soul, right?
So
because
does that not be higher? Although it doesn't captivate you like seeing, but it hits.
They all hit the essence of the soul. That's what he's trying to say. The senses touch the essence of the soul. Every single one of them. But in some way, that's what I was just saying a second ago. Like I usually don't talk about like gradations when it comes to the essence of your soul, but he is like ranking the senses that in the sense that sight. I guess sight is just the more, obvious and immediate.
How is it? How we perceive it, or is it the actual ranking of it?
No, it's the actual sense. It's just period. Sight has a certain draw upon you, your person, that your other senses don't.
Like, would the right order be sight, hearing, smell, taste?
Again,
right?
order, he's saying them in an order. I don't know if he's ranking them. So far we said sight, smell, hearing, and that's it so far.
Because I thought the smell was directed to the smell was directed to the soul. You would have thought that was almost the most powerful.
They're all directed to the soul. That's the point he's trying to make, right? That your intellect, your emotions, which are contracted powers of your soul, but your senses, which are even further contracted powers of your soul, all five of your senses, even though they're more contracted, each one of them has access to the essence. So the lower you go, and so the higher you get to. So So hearing is broken up to these two parts. You can hear an idea, or you can hear the voice, the beautiful voice, and in hearing an idea, there's just not as much pleasure in hearing the voice. When you're not based with shmiya, the second idea of hearing is etzem chusha shmiya. Not that you're using hearing as an intermediary to pick up on ideas, but just the simple sense of hearing. Like it is when you hear a beautiful sound, a beautiful voice. Right? That the beautiful sound that enters into the ear. I saw like a meme or something. Someone said, are you someone who, it spoke to me, I gotta tell you. Are you someone who hears who can't get out of the car until the song is over? Right? And that's the idea. It's like, you can't, either you have a connection with your sense of shmiya or you don't. If you do, there's no getting you out of the car. It's like you can't pull yourself away from the beautiful sound, just like you can't pull yourself away from the beautiful sight. There's something, unfortunately, maybe you could turn off the shear, but hearing the sound is going to stick you there. There's something so pleasurable that even though you're in the middle of your business day, you're stuck in there. Anyway, whatever, just a meme. But the idea is that it's something beautiful which draws the essence. This beautiful sound that enters into your ear, what's the secret of it? So it says it reaches to the ears of your heart. It's a beautiful little phrase there. Right? The ear leads to the ear of your heart. That's of course only with someone who has a chush in hearing. In other words, I guess not everybody has the same connection to their hearing as other people do. I guess you call these people musicians or connoisseurs or whatever it is. Just like in taste, you have different people who are mamish bucky in tasting things. They make money from it and they share with others how things taste as though you can't taste them yourselves because you can't. You can't discern the taste like another person can. People are bucky in sound. And for them, their ears are tuned to enter directly into the ears of their heart. Okay, everybody is like that to some degree, but he's saying, he puts in parentheses, someone who has essentially a tainug in his soul from a beautiful sound, that's it, he's not getting out of the car. And why? Because right there in that ears of the heart dwells, guess who? Your yechida of your soul. Just like we said, by smelling, like Shalom said, it taps into the part of your soul which is not in your body, and by vision, it's the same. that your yechida is somehow triggered by your senses. Because it all of a sudden reached to the essence of your soul. You could literally go out of your body by hearing something. Right? It's possible to faint and just lose your life, basically, from a beautiful sound. Which is why you have, I guess, I'm just thinking about it. What's that?
That's Sinai, when we heard God.
We heard, we saw, everything there, but yeah. I'm just thinking, the power of music that has upon people, People give their lives literally to follow music bands around and everything like this. It's like they literally cannot pull themselves away from it. When it comes to the sense of hearing, there's an essential pleasure, right? Not a watered down pleasure which is diluted through the power of intellect or through the power of emotions, right? There's pleasure at every sense, at every level of your being. When you're going to have an intellectual experience with your mind, it opens up a pleasure sensor that you have from intellect. When you're going to have a experience of emotional warmth to a person, it opens up a pleasure sensor of tainug. Tainug is hiding inside of every single thing, right? Tainug is sort of the source of all things, but not every time are you hitting the tainug itself. Sometimes you're hitting the intellect and you're opening up the intellect and finding the tainug that's hidden inside. But what he's saying here is that the hearing or all these senses, they just are pure tainug. You don't have to uncover the casing that the tainug is in. Somehow the tainug appears, which is the essence of the soul, is tainug. It appears in the senses somehow. V'lechein dafka. V'hi kenagin hamanagin v'tehi alav ruach elokim. Right? This is a pretty obvious example. It says in the days of the prophets that when the musician would play, and behold, there would be the Spirit of God upon the prophet. Right? It's no joke. Music enabled prophecy. Because it reached to the essential pleasure of the prophet, so all of a sudden his soul was just uncovered when he heard the music. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is directly related, but a question I've had for some time is someone really gets into the flow in music.
Yeah.
And it says, it seems to be supported by this pasuk. Do you somehow tap into the ruach of your neshama?
Yeah, you definitely tap into some deep part of your neshama. He's saying sound. There's different. He says the heat. Well, there's two different things. Getting into the flow. There's different ways of doing that. I think there's people who are getting into the flow because it's different chushim that could be applied. Like a dancer also gets into the flow, and when you're playing music, in a certain sense, you're like a dancer as well. It's a different chush. It's like the chush of touch, or what I'm saying. So, but yeah, I think the idea is that the prophets themselves were not playing. They were like the music came in, and the pleasure from hearing the music just overtook them. So there are certainly some integrated players, I guess you could say, that when they're playing, it's not mechanical. It's just like they're just hearing the music. It's kind of an amazing skill. Usually, you're busy, with the instrument to a point that, in a certain sense, it could disrupt you. But yeah, it's possible that from your own sound that you're producing, for sure, you could lose yourself.
Spiritual.
The pleasure could be spiritual. The pleasure could be physical. The point is just touches on a part of you, which is your essential part.
Pleasure is your soul.
Your soul is
experiencing pleasure. It's your soul experiencing. It's your soul expressing itself.
Yeah, because think about it, right? You go through Malchus, Yesod, you go all the way up the ladder. You get to Kesser, and what is Kesser made out of? It's the Ratzo, and then the Panemius Kesser is the Tainug, right? So you have will and pleasure. Now, both will and pleasure, they're not really in your body in the normal sense. In other words, they are, but right, like we always talk about, like your hand has the power of, tanua in it, and your foot has the power of halicha, and your eyes have the power of riyah. Each vessel has its own koach that's in that place, whereas will is not in any of those places. You can't say that your arm is the kli of your will, or even your brain is the kli of your will. So, like we talked about the other day, it's everywhere.
So the kli for it is your nefesh, is your soul.
So, no, I'm saying that it's
expressed everywhere.
It's in every right. Well, that it is your soul. Your will is your soul.
So I'm saying.
It's like the netiyas hanefesh, and beyond that, your pleasure is even
sounds like coarse.
The pleasure is even the source of your will. Right. The only reason that your soul even has a movement in a particular direction or other is because there's a pleasure that it is listening to. Your will is determined by your pleasure in something. So it is coarse. Why? Because your animal soul, it has pleasure for physicality. And so it has therefore will for physicality, and it's going to go and think about physicality, and it's going to go eat physicality. Your godly soul has a pleasure in divine things, but still, just like in the same way. So it wants to think about Elokus, but it wants to hear the beautiful niggin. In other words, so it's
So when you have that from Kedusha, it's like a pleasurable Kedusha.
It could be from either of your two souls, right? But the point is that it's the essence of your soul, whichever soul it's accessing, right? And just like anything, you can be in the middle of eating a sandwich. You could do it l'shem shamayim. You could do it not l'shem shamayim.
You're having some sort of pleasure there, whether you're doing l'shem shamayim or not. You are enjoying it.
Yes.
That enjoyment is coming from actually kiss.
The question of it's a godly enjoyment.
How do you know if it's a godly one or not?
I guess it comes with certain. How do you know if it's a godly one? I mean, the truth is,
You don't.
no. I mean,
because you can look at the picture of the Rebbe and not feel bad.
Or you could like listen
no, what you're saying is basically exactly what I was thinking. Because I just saw the Rabbi said, "How do you know if your choices are right?" Because after it's over, when it's a bad choice, you feel bad about it. When it's a good choice, you feel good about it. So and you already know that when you're doing it. You know if you're going to feel bad about this.
How do I know if I'm listening to Bob Marley and I'm like literally feeling like I'm like understanding what the
So I'm saying, where does it? I'll tell you. That's exactly what I just said. Where does it lead you afterwards, right? If it leads you to wanting to go, do drugs afterwards, which oftentimes it probably would. So it's leading you into a direction which is it's an animalistic pleasure. If it leads you to an arousal of wanting to go and sit and learn a mimer and like concentrate and be connected to God,
That's pure kedusha.
okay, then it's kedusha, But you have to also be honest with yourself. A person can totally delude themselves, thinking, for example, just a random, totally disconnected mashal. Let's say I'm going to grow my hair. I'm going to be a nazir, right? A person wants to be a nazir, and it's an Indian of kedusha. Right? But the same hair, if it's not a Nazir, it's like mamash an experience of total selfishness and arrogance, as we say, like the klippas in the hair. So in other words, you have to be discerning. One action can be taken in two different ways. The same exact action, the action, let's say, of growing the hair, or listening to a beautiful sound, it could either be on the side it could be on either side. So you can't really be sure. You have to. That's why in general we don't have such a tapping into feeling the tainug of our soul. And therefore our tainug of our soul should not necessarily be what leads our decision making. But if I have tainug in this, I'm going to do it. If I don't have tainug, I'm not. That's usually coming from the tainug of your animal soul. That's what we say in the mezuzah there, Lo sasuru acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem. Don't turn after your eyes or your heart. Those are like both like sort of seats of the tainug. Don't listen to them when it comes to your determination of whether you're going to do an action or not. Listen rather to, unfortunately, we're on the level of tzaddikim where like our tainug can lead us. If our tainug leads us, it leads us usually in the wrong direction. So we have to use our kabbalas ol, we have to use our mesiras nefesh for kedusha. And then the thing is if you happen to be in kabbalas ol and you come to the minyan on time and you're with the minyan for kedusha and the whole room is mamish like filled with the sound of kedusha, screaming and singing a niggin, and you feel a real essential tainug from that moment, it's good. It's tainug eloki. Right, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's your measuring stick of where I feel tainug is where I should put myself. It's probably usually the opposite, unfortunately, just because we are primarily our animal souls, right? Tzaddikim, they're primarily their godly souls, and it says like Hillel, he says I have to take my animal and go feed it. Like to him, his animalistic body that he was in was some stranger to him that he carried around. By us, it's the exact opposite. We are an animal. And we have this godly soul that's somewhere in the back of my, pocket somewhere, but I know that I have one because they told me I'm Jewish and I learned a little Tanya, but that's not the me. So that's very dangerous. If that's not the me, then I better not be just going around according to what suits my fancy. I have to make decisions
It's
based
not really
on
what suits you fancy. It's literally
what feels good.
No, it's literally what happens after. It's literally you're just waiting. You can literally just test it out yourself. Basically, you can do it. You can feel the pleasures from your senses, and then see if you feel like going to class, and then see if you feel like going to school, and see if you feel like davening and everything. And if you do, and if you really sincerely do, then it is kedusha, no?
Yeah, it's just that you usually don't, because there's, it's like, for example, the Rebbe said, a line that we have to be very careful about listening to goyish music in general, right? Especially the words of goyish music,
Goyish music meaning just
Goyish music means
played by a
music
non-Jew.
played by a non-Jew. That's called Goyish music, right? And especially the words
All the good music.
of the. Listen again. I'm by the way, I'm not totally in disagreement with
I'm
you.
joking.
I mean, nigunim, I think is good music.
That's
But in
great.
terms of like people trying to get together and play music, yeah, Jewish people, some of them are good musicians, of course. But there's there's $1 billion industry called the music industry. People training themselves their whole lives to make pleasurable music. It's definitely a better sandwich than, let's say, a matzah. But the point is that is it good for you? And so the idea is that it's unfortunately, it's just like, if you're going to eat a big beautiful cheesecake and it's like that's the good food, you're going to have a stomachache afterwards. You might not sense it as clearly, but it's quite perceptible to if you are aware of it, that when you hear influences, put it like that, influences of Goyish music, these guys are not sitting around in their band room meditating on the Yichud of Hashem.
But a lot of people,
before
a lot of them are.
No, they're actually not. But let's take, for example, Bob Marley, right?
Bob Marley, who believes he comes either from the tribe of Judah or from the tribe of
So
Dan.
this is all very interesting. You know what else he holds? He holds that his rabbi is God, and he's a Christian. Okay, so you can, and if you get into his actual background, he changed religions about 6 times, and he had 15 kids with different women. This is not like a man who's sitting there meditating on Achdus Hashem. I'm sorry to break your bubble. Okay, he's actually kind of like a lowlife. I mean, he was an amazing musician and so forth. But in terms of his perception of reality, he was totally skewed. Now he might have said a lot of good lines and kol hakavod to him. But all I'm trying to say is that for a yid who's trying to get into emes and be misbonen on the godless of Hashem and mamish bring himself to the Torah and its mitzvahs, which are it's a whole world. The influence of hearing words and emotions which are not coming from there, and for sure being excited by those influences and emotions, and being, as you said, it's like it carries you, just like your eyes, if you see the Torah, can amplify your excitement for the Torah. Your eyes, if you see a beautiful woman, can amplify you for the beautiful woman.
It's not like you're hearing a song about women.
The ear,
this is pure Torah. When
the ear, it's pure Torah. What are you saying? Would you like me to? I hate to tell you, my Baal Tshuva days are coming out, but I could probably show you a handful of lines that are pure Avodah Zarah. What are you saying? Okay, unfortunately, I still know them, but I'm not going to say them because it's Pashid Asr to say it. That's the thing. You don't even know. All I'm saying is that just like the ear, we're saying leads to the ear of the heart, right? And what's the idea of these senses? Is that these senses Pashid amplify the heart. Well, if the ear is hearing things that are amplifying the heart in a direction which is making it dance a different dance than the Torah dance, then you are now being amplified away from the Torah. It's just, that's what the Rabbi said. Be careful about listening to this music. He's not trying to deny your pleasure, stam. He's trying to harness the Jew inside of you. And when you do this type of behavior, it doesn't harness the Jew inside of you, unfortunately, because it's lots of fun. It harnesses the Goy inside of you, and it makes him amplified. And it doesn't really lead you, if you're dealing in a world of heavy metal and death rock, yeah, Bob Marley's a step towards the right direction. But the problem is, it's a step towards the right direction, which is not leading you home. It's just leading you a little bit out of a very darker clip, potentially. But we can't fool ourselves. Listen, I also love beautiful music. I spent 20 years of my life being a professional musician, and I listened to everything in the book and studied it and so forth. I get it. It's a tainug atzmi. We're learning about it. But if we want to be realistic, does it really lead you to greater yiras Hashem? And does it really lead you to a greater, clinging to the book of truth and life? No, it does not.
Sincerely, we can say that, we can say no.
I think
Strong
so.
like that.
Listen, you could ask other people, but to me, and again, I'm a bit of a connoisseur.
No, but you're listening to all the music you have listened to, being a professional musician, studying it, and then it brings you here, and then you're here.
It didn't.
Today,
No, but it didn't. I'll tell you if you want to. Okay, we can talk about it personally if you want to say. It did not bring me here. What brought me here was realizing the seichel of music. When I realized that music is created by God, not because of the Bob Marley, because of music theory. Right? I said, this is mamish, not a normal thing. It's too perfect. And then, discipline. I realized that the discipline that was required in order to actually perfect yourself in music This was an amazing feeling. Like that nothing else in the world spoke to me that I wanted to sit in a room for 8 hours a day and do something. So it was really the chokhmah and the discipline that drew me to the Torah. It was, and in fact, as soon as I came into the Torah, I realized very quickly that the actual sounds and the actual words and the actual experience and the actual lifestyle of all those people was very contrary to what I was actually looking for in the music. And therefore I pretty much quickly rejected all of that soon after I found the Torah, because I wasn't looking for that part in the music as my yid. Right? As a 20-year-old guy, going around partying, that's what I was looking for. The goy in me was looking for that. But the yid in me was looking for this, the discipline and the seichel in it. That's just if you want to know personally. Anyway, glad we got Bob into the class there. So, moving right along.
You're saying it's not a good thing to Bob Marley? Make sure.
That's great. You're always looking for the final stuff. Trust me, before you even heard the seichel and the reasons, I'm sure that's the psak you were giving. Knowing you, my brother. Okay, where did we get up to? I got lost. So this is touching into the yechida of the nefesh. Okay, and going back to last thing we said was the sound of the music created the prophecy in the prophet. Why? Because it reaches to the essential place of tainuk. He says, however, despite all the excitement about music, the ultimate state of revealing your essential tainuk is in sight. Can't get away from it. And he doesn't go on there because he already said the whole class yesterday was like going on and on and on about sight. So each of them has a certain power over you, but apparently sight is the most drawing. Again, not necessarily the most, whatever. It's where your soul finds ultimately the most tainug. And the proof is you get locked into a vision more than you get locked into anything else. So now to sort of wrap up the point, we see from all these examples that the senses, even though the life force in them is an extremely external life force, they just leak out of the cracks of your body, as it were. Nevertheless, specifically in them is the revelation of the essential pleasure and draws your actual essence to the table, which your mind cannot bring forth your essence, your heart cannot bring forth your essence. Only these little senses can somehow access an aspect of your soul which is beyond your body. And the example of all this we can see above. It's all a metaphor for above. The Hine Nizbar we explained in the last class or the class before. Tizhav was bechinas chesed de bria, humir chesed atzilus. Remember we talked about the blade of grass and so forth, and we said that the bringing into existence of chesed of bria came from chesed of atzilus. Like we said, Avram, and there was a pasuk Taima Beinayu. There was a line of separation between them because the Avram in bria is an infinitesimal aspect. A nivra, a created being, versus the Avram and Atzilus, which is Chesed of Atzilus, which is the Yebishter. And nevertheless, as distant as they are, there is no such thing as Avram of Bria, unless it's made up entirely of the DNA of Avram of Atzilus. It can't be coming from anywhere else, it's the product. So we said what? The lowest part of the spiritual thing somehow makes us dance with the highest part of the physical thing, this most spiritual part of the physical thing, and it invests into it its most external aspect. So that's what we said before. Chesed of Bria is made out of, so to speak, Chesed of Atzilus. Which means from the lowest part of Chesed of Atzilus, Mizhav Bechinas Chesed of Bria. That's where Chesed of Bria comes out. We spoke about it in great depth. We said that the lowest part of the vessels of Atzilus, let alone the light doesn't have anything to do with it. The light is too high to even have anything in this conversation. But the vessels, and even the lowest part of the vessels of Atzilus, they are responsible for making the highest part of the light of Bria. As we said over there, you can look back if you want. The same is true not just from going from Atzilus to Bria, but in Atzilus itself. The same process takes place. First of all, from the standpoint of the lights which are invested into the vessels. Hainu, bechinas ha'ara levad, me'orin tov ha'matzu baruch hu. We already said this. In general, just the fact that there are lights in Atzilus means that they've acquiesced and agreed to come into the kelim of Atzilus in order to get there. Because in Atzilus there are lights and vessels. So that just the general concept there are even lights in Atzilus means they've already undergone this massive contraction, that the lowest part of the higher one becomes the highest part of the lower one. So the lights of Atzilus in general are already the smallest possible part of the Or Ein Sof you could have. The lowest part of the Ein Sof, of the Or Ein Sof. And it's in the same exact way. And it's the same exact principle that the most elevated spiritual part of the lights that are in Atzilus, they receive from the lowest, most Gashmias parts of the Or Ein Sof. I never heard that before, that he refers to there's a Gashmias part of the Or Ein Sof, but it's nice. As we said earlier,
Can that not be between Atzilus and Bria? It says V'gam came ba'ifin hanal.
no, but he's talking about
Between Atzilus and Bria, or no?
he's saying it's an ofen of Atzilus and Bria, but right now he's saying that we're talking about now in Atzilus Gufa. The whole thing, look at 3 lines down. I didn't get to the parentheses yet.
I thought you were in the Shurach.
Where am I looking?
Oh, you're right, that is, yeah. No, but it's also going on the same topic, right?
I think it's saying it's just like it's happening in regular physical to spiritual, spiritual to physical. So too, it's with the Tzilus and upper worlds.
Yeah, which is
it's
what?
calling Tzilus Gashmi.
No, but he's saying it's in the same way before.
As in the lowest of the high goes to the highest of the
Okay, but it's called the Ruchnis of the Gashmis goes in the Gashmis of Ruchnis.
Right.
In Atzilus?
Even in Bria, there's no Gashmis, right? So he's just saying, I'm just saying, it's a phraseology. In other words, it's just a way of saying the highest of the lowest, lowest of the highest. You call it the spiritual of the physical, the physical of the spiritual. Yeah. That doesn't properly apply to Bria either, but it's like the ear can at least handle that because you're talking about Bria. Here he's saying the same principle applies from Ein Sof to Atzilus, and it's just very strange language to use, the Gashmis of the Ruchnis, but it's fine. It's not like not going to break our kelim over here.
No, but first it talks about Ein Sof, and then it says Gam Kain ba'ifin hanal. So just the same way that we have that correlation between Ein Sof and Atzilus, we also have it in the way that we described earlier between Atzilus and Bria.
Right. Exactly. Which means that just like in Atzilus and Bria you have Gashmis and Ruchnis, Ruchnis Shiva Gashmis, Gam Kain ba'ofen hanal. Okay, anyways, it's mamish.
But where do you see he's saying about Gashmit of Or Ein Sof?
Listen, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it. All I'm saying is, look, it's fine. We'll just read it again, and we'll just all see for ourselves. Go to 3 lines down. Kamo kain hu be'esher spheres Atzilus gufa. So it is in the actual esher spheres of Atzilus themselves. And it was not Bria and Atzilus, but in Atzilus. Hen bechlalos ha'oros misplashim b'kelim. First of all, the lights, forgetting about their relationship with their vessels, just lights. The way they come down into vessels, bichlal, is in a way that it's a ha'ara levad. It's only a shine bichlal of the Or Ein Sof that's even in Atzilus. Mi Or Ein Sof hamatzi baruch hu, from the Or Ein Sof, the emanator, blessed be He. B'chinas ha'yoser tachtona shebo. It's the lowest part, in other words, of the Or Ein Sof. And he says, hu gam came ba'ofen hanal, which it's in the same manner that the Ruchnis of the Gashmis receives from the Gashmis of the Ruchnis.
Right, it's in the highest of the.
That's what I'm saying. It's just weird language.
I don't think it's calling it Gashmis. I'm saying it's saying like just when you have this relationship of the two levels.
I agree with you. He's not calling Gashmis, except for the fact that he calls it Gashmis.
No, it does say Ha'ara levad me'or Ein Sof. It's not the Or Ein Sof itself, it's the light coming out.
That's the point. In other words, it's just receiving from the lowest, the Gashmis of the Ruchnis.
Alright.
To commotion is bar la'el. As we explained earlier, yesh ba'ivarim eze histamnus el hatsura haruchnias. Oh, this is kind of getting cool now. He says, just like we said before, that when it comes to the limbs, there's some kind of a mirroring and a domeh, a comparison between the physical limb and the spiritual power that's being put into that limb, albeit they're mamish. The Ein Ruch, you can't compare an eye, even the shiny part of an eye, to vision. But the fact that vision comes into the eye, it's just like light comes through glass. It's a material which is translucent. So he says there is a connection why vision specifically comes to the eye, despite their massive difference between spirit and flesh. He says this, and the same thing is true all the way up to the top. So there is some kind of a parallel between this little tiny lights that come into Atzilus, which are so incomparable to the Or Ein Sof because they're finite, they come into vessels, yet there's some kind of hisdamus, there's a comparison between this edge of Or Ein Sof that comes into Atzilus to what it actually looks like in the Or Ein Sof. This is how we actually ever are able to make out what the Or Ein Sof looks like. This is the whole purpose of the entire Shtalshlus in general. You can actually understand something about God because despite the fact that he comes lower and lower and lower and winds up being, physicality, you can make your way back through this Shtalshlus that it's some comparison of Chesed of Atzilus to Chesed of Ein Sof. That's what he's saying. Yesh be'ayivar, just like in the previous analogy, in the limbs, there's a comparison to the form of Ruchnius that comes into them. And it's because it has a kli, which is a shiny eye, that it can handle the light of vision. So it is with the lights and vessels of Atzilus. In other words, lights and vessels of Atzilus are the first place that there is such a thing called lights and vessels. Let me just... what is it?
Preface?
Not preface, with the idea that Atzilus is unique in that it is the first world that light goes into vessels. So the concept of Spheros is really first found in Atzilus. Meaning what? Before you get to Atzilus, the light is infinite. Since the light is infinite, no vessel can hold an infinite light. And therefore you really haven't begun the process yet of really defining anything. Hashem, he has this sort of Adam Ha'elyon, he's this higher man who sits in the chariot. You can define him with different powers. You can't really define him properly till he comes into some type of body, which is the body of the 10 spheres of Atzilus. Now the light is actually contracted and in vessels. So he's saying that therefore, it's amazing to note that these vessels are in some way a kli and mirror whatever is going on in a domain that we can't even talk about. In the Or Ein Sof, there must be some kind of parallel, because just like the physical shiny eye holds sight, so too these particular spheros and their finite characteristics somehow hold the Ein Sof, which is a much bigger chiddush than, let's say, the eye holding vision. It's like somehow you have a kli holding Ein Sof, but there's something in the Ein Sof which is compared to that kli.
So we're learning about Ein Sof right now.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a parenthesis though. So he just wants to say that the whole idea of Atzilus, you also see the same concept we saw from Atzilus to Bria. That first of all, the lights, they're already a contraction from the Or Ein Sof. Now he's saying the spheros going one down to the other. They're like a chain that only from the lowest part of the higher one, that's what is available to go into the next sphere. So Bina Bechlal only has the edge of the bottom ring of the ladder of Chokhmah. And this is the principle. As is always, the external part of the higher one becomes the penimius part of the lower one. So for example, in your own senses, you have intellect and emotion. So you can meditate on this wondrous idea and be like gripped with the whole vision of the idea before you. When you want to actually get emotionally stimulated by that, it has to break itself down into what we call the b'chein. Right? Like we say in Yishtabach, u'b'chein Yishtabach. In other words, after I've just meditated in the whole Pesukah de Zimra, and this is on Shabbos, we say u'b'chein, they're much longer, which means you've meditated, now you want to actually feel something, you have to bring it down to the therefore. Because it's only the therefore which basically eliminates all the arichas of the meditation. You just come down to like a final point that's what can fit into your heart. It's the tiny drop of the intellect which can come into your heart and actually you can feel something. So if you want to have a move from one universe to the other, from one domain to the other, of intellect to emotions, you can only handle inside of your emotional body a drop of your intellect. V'kamo nefesh, v'kamo netzach hod yesod. Another way of putting that is that the Netzach Hod Yesod, which is the lowest domain, the idea of action, right? In general, you have Chabad, Chagas, Nahi, right? Which is Chochmah Bina Das, Chesed Geber Tiferes, Netzach Hod Yesod. They're like three realms: intellect, emotion, and action. The only thing is, in every realm, you have intellect, emotion, and action. So in your intellect, you have intellect, emotion, and action. In your emotions, you have intellect, emotion, and action. What he's saying is exactly what I just said a minute ago. If you want your intellect to go into your emotion, it's only from the nehi, the action of the intellect, the lowest part of the intellect, which is shaykh to basically It's not shaykh to thinking anymore. It's not shaykh to feeling anymore. It's just shaykh to giving itself over. It's that nehi which now becomes the brain of your heart. So the chabad and the penimius of your emotions is actually the foot of your intellect. Nimtza de kol zman. Kol zeh hu b'chinas ha'ara levad. So it comes out that you're dealing with a ray of a ray of a ray. Every time you're going to a next level, you're only getting a ray. Kamo kain b'chinas or ha'keser shenimshach be'eser sfiros. And the same is true if you want to go beyond the Atzilus into Atzilus, which you mentioned a second ago. That for the Or Ein Sof to come into Atzilus is also only a ray. So from Keser to Atzilus is only a ray. Hainu b'chinas ha'ratzon v'ataylut shebehem. Harizeh rak ha'ara levad. Shemismayit medrega lemedrega. Right? Even from Keser, which now let's go into it. It's will and pleasure, which we're talking about pleasure before. So Keser is the source of will and pleasure. When it comes into the intellect, you only get the foot of pleasure. Which is why we said before that when you actually find pleasure in an idea, why is it not as powerful as the pleasure of vision? We'll get to it in a second. Because it's only the foot of pleasure of Keser, which is rooted, which is able to come down inside and be living inside of your intellect, right? So all of your 10 spheros, by definition, they only have the foot of pleasure. They don't have the full gamut of pleasure, because for something to get from one world to the next, it has to have this huge descent. But some miracle happens when it comes to your senses. That your senses somehow are able to access and unlock the pleasure itself, not its hishtalshalus like, covering itself over of going down from sphera to sphera and from world to world. Which we'll get to tomorrow.
Well, let's say you have someone who does more than a song. It doesn't exist.
Because the darkness must come out of